The narrative-dominating headline suggests Iran's military posturing was a bold power play, but the reality for Tehran is far more grim. While the world watches tactical skirmishes over missiles or mines in the Strait of Hormuz, the strategic ledger tells a different story. Iran has lost its long game entirely. By escalating to secure regime survival through nuclear brinkmanship and regional proxy warfare, Tehran triggered a sanctions trap that tightened an economic noose around their own necks without delivering any geopolitical dividends. The question is not whether they won a battle, it is why their strategy of using the bomb as leverage for hegemony has backfired so catastrophically. To understand this outcome, we must look beyond the binary lens of tactical victories and examine the structural collapse of Iran's conventional deterrence and human capital infrastructure. The strategic reality emerging from recent operations reveals that U.S. Israeli forces achieved overwhelming traditional military superiority by early 2026. In a single week, Iranian missile launchers were reduced by approximately 70%, with 330 out of 470 destroyed. Their navy was effectively sunk, suffering over 90% loss within days, and the capacity for coordinated missile attacks dropped by 90%. These are not minor setbacks. They represent the decimation of the very hardware required to project power or threaten regional stability. However, destroying physical infrastructure is only half the story. The more profound strategic failure lies in the erosion of human capital. Military strikes did not just target factories and launchers, they targeted nodes of institutional knowledge. In June 2025, Israeli operations resulted in the reported assassination of at least 14 leading nuclear scientists, including a significant wave on June 24. This loss decimated the tacit expertise regarding centrifuge operation and uranium conversion that physical repairs cannot replace. When you remove the minds capable of designing these systems, rebuilding becomes exponentially slower than simply replacing damaged buildings. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. This dynamic created what analysts call the sanctions trap. Despite initial claims by U.S. officials like Secretary Pete Hegseth that Iran's nuclear ambitions were obliterated, the conflict evolved into a stalemate defined by mutual destruction and economic paralysis. Every escalation by Tehran to break these chains triggered tighter maritime blockades, as the United States effectively blocked those attempting to bypass restrictions in Hormuz. The result is an economic spiral where isolation deepens without forcing regime collapse or securing regional dominance. Iran found itself trapped in a cage of their own making. They cannot de-escalate without admitting total strategic defeat, yet escalating further risks internal societal collapse due to the crushing weight of sanctions and lost export revenue from oil and gas. The scale of leadership decapitation shocked the geopolitical landscape, revealing that this was not merely a military campaign, but a structural dismantling of decision-making capabilities. Reports indicate over 250 leaders were killed during these operations, including senior command figures within the Revolutionary Guard Corps. While satellite imagery from July 2025 shows extensive damage at the Isfahan Nuclear Technology Center, with over 20 buildings destroyed and stockpiles of 60% enriched uranium remain split between sites like Natanz, the path to weaponization has been fundamentally altered. The leadership vacuum leaves Iran's decision-making paralyzed. Their continued resistance is now purely existential rather than strategic, driven by survival instincts in a system where the ability to plan long-term foreign policy objectives has been severely compromised. Consider the timeline implications of this human and physical destruction. Secretary Hegseth claimed nuclear ambitions were obliterated, but the nuance lies in the time required for recovery. With key leadership decimated and critical scientific expertise erased, rebuilding the capability to enrich uranium to weaponization thresholds now requires years, if not decades. The cost has become too high for Tehran's current economy to sustain a rapid return to their previous trajectory of regional ambition. This explains why diplomatic talks have shifted focus from quick deals on enrichment limits to discussions about decades-long freezes. The incentive structure has flipped entirely. This analysis clarifies why global energy markets remain volatile despite U.S. military dominance in the region. Tehran is not fighting to win a war or gain hegemony anymore. They are fighting to survive within an economic cage that tightens with every move they make. The strategic takeaway for any observer of international relations is clear. Nuclear leverage has hard limits. When a state tries to use it as a tool for global dominance without the underlying conventional power and human capital to back it up, the result is not regional control but self-inflicted isolation. The conflict demonstrates that in modern great power competition, the most effective deterrence may not be the threat of force alone, but the ability to dismantle the very foundations of an adversary's statecraft. By targeting both hardware and expertise simultaneously, opponents have forced Iran into a position where their nuclear program is no longer a viable card for regional bargaining. The sanctions trap ensures that any attempt to rebuild will only invite further economic strangulation, locking Tehran out of the global economy they once hoped to weaponize against them. The future outlook suggests a prolonged period of Iranian vulnerability rather than an immediate return to threat status. While stockpiles remain and some facilities survive underground, the loss of human capital means that even if sanctions were lifted tomorrow, Iran would lack the skilled workforce necessary to accelerate their program quickly. This structural weakness fundamentally alters the timeline for global threats emerging from Tehran. The window for rapid weaponization has closed not because the materials are gone, but because the mines required to use them efficiently have been removed. In this new strategic landscape, the focus shifts from immediate military outcomes to long-term economic and institutional recovery. Iran's leaders face a dilemma where any move toward normalization requires admitting that their previous strategy of confrontation failed, while continued resistance guarantees further isolation without prospect of success. This is the essence of the sanctions trap, a condition where survival depends on endurance rather than victory, and where every attempt to break free only deepens the economic noose. The strategic failure of Tehran highlights a critical lesson for global observers regarding the limits of asymmetric warfare when it lacks sufficient foundational power. Nuclear ambitions alone cannot sustain regional hegemony against coordinated conventional superiority and targeted human capital destruction. The result is a state that remains dangerous but strategically diminished, trapped in an economic cage they constructed through decades of miscalculated escalation. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.